Welcome to our video of Matthew 2, verses 12 to 15, a flight into Egypt. Our theme word is going to be number 5537. As we go through these videos, and as I've already done 3 of them, there are things that I thought about and wanted to go over first before we go into this text here. Things that you will be seeing as we go through the Greek Bible. The translations will be maybe many times the opposite of what you heard and what you were taught. And you may think, well, who is this man to teach something that's the opposite that the King James has? New King James, NIV, NAS, all of these Bibles, and all these wonderful teachers of God's Word. And who am I that I would be saying something or translating it differently and opposite of what I heard? This may be a question you have. So my credential basically is having translated the entire Greek Old and New Testament, put it into an interlinear form as you see, and numerically coding the entire Greek Old Testament. James Strong he did the Hebrew Old Testament and the Greek New Testament. Nobody studied the Greek until I started developing the Apostolic Bible. Now it's much more popular than it was when I started in 1985. So whenever you see the difference between what I'm writing here, what I'm putting down, and which somebody that you heard saying something, then I would suggest maybe comparing the credentials. Has that person translated the whole Greek Old and New Testament? Or is he just saying something also that he heard and read from someplace else? And also, don't fall for the argument that, well, many translators say something different than this guy is saying. Many translators can't be wrong. Well, many translators may not be wrong, but having many people translating the Bible, I know because I've done it, that many translators, you would lose the continuity. One person would want to use one word and another would use another word for the same Greek word. As in the last video I showed, you could choose with the postpositive de, delta epsilon, you can make it and or but or when, anything you want. Now, if you have 10 people or 20 people translating all these different books, one's going to say one thing and the other's going to say something else. And that's just a simple example. There's a lot more possible translations that can be, different people can look at it in different ways, especially with the verbs. So don't fall for the argument of many translators. Now, in this video, we're going to have also what I'm going to be calling in every video, along with the theme number, word, a grammatical subject. And the grammatical subject of this video is preposition. And it's also called a preposition. Now, a lot of the words that have been developed for Greek grammar have been formed hundreds of years ago. But as I have gone through it, I don't think in many places it's very conducive for a person that wants to learn the basic Greek to have these words. Like the word noun. Well, what is a noun? You have to look it up and try to figure out what a noun is. Why don't they just call it a name? A name. It's a divine message, or if it's his name is Herod, a way. All these things in the first verse, you can see a dream is a noun. it's a name, I mean, a place, all these words, nouns or places. A preposition is a preposition. It has to do with the position to an object. Here we have a book, and the preposition will describe this book and where it is in a position. And that's what it is. Very simple. We'll go through that and find out. Then next, if you want to go into grammar really heavily, further than what I'm going to bring out here in these video seminars, you're welcome to do that. But if you don't have a good memory, you're in for a nightmare, because there is so many paradigms to remember. Now, I started off with that way with the book of Machen's Grammar. And here it is. I don't know if you can, how well the camera is going to pick that up. But all these paradigms, you have to remember them. Thousands of them. Learning the endings. It's just a task that I don't see it's necessary. I didn't do that. I mean, I went through it, but I have a terrible memory, so didn't want to do that with memorizing everything. So I have to look up a lot of things, which is no big deal because I have that analytical lexicon that I showed you. There are many people that could put me to shame as far as Greek grammar. I have all sorts of Greek grammars right here behind me, and some of them are this thick, and the grammar, it's amazing if you want to get into that level. It'd be like going into nuclear physics for somebody that wants to learn how to count, do basic arithmetic. Why would you want to do that? You're just torturing yourself. So there's going to be things that this book is called Machen's, the New Testament Greek for a Beginner by Machen, by Macmillan. You can probably get it on the internet, or I'm going to put a place where you can download it free in a PDF form. Now, if you do want to go through that way, you'll see things that we'll never touch in these videos, and I don't think it's necessary. And some of the things are, as I made a little list, the first, second, and third declensions. You don't have to know which declension it is. Accent and breathing marks, all that you don't need because there was never any accent breathing marks in the original. So why pick that problem up? I have put this little dot for emphasis when you're talking and you're speaking, and that's all it is. It's, you say on whatever the dot is over, you give that the emphasis. There are also things called augments. Not going to go into that. There are stems. We're not going to go into stems. Reduplication. We're not going to get into that. First and second aorist. We're not going to get into any of these things. But as I mentioned, that this video is going to have the grammatical subject of preposition and the theme word of 5537. So with that, we'll now go in to the text. And here it is, Flight into Egypt, chapter 2, verse 12. Ke chrematistentes kat onar me anakamse pros erodin, and having received a divine message by dream. And in Jeremiah 36:4 we see where it says, and Baruch wrote, and he was a secretary to Jeremiah. Baruch wrote from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the Lord, of which he gave a divine message to him, and he being God, and him being Jeremiah, was on a papyrus scroll. Then in Hebrews, New Testament 11, verse 7, it says, by belief, Noah, having received a divine message concerning the things not as yet being seen, showing reverence, carefully prepared the ark for the deliverance of his house. And in Hebrews 8:5, and he says, ones who serve the example and shadow of the heavenlies, as Moses was divinely instructed, being about to complete them. So we see here then Jeremiah, Noah, Moses, all receiving a divine instruction. Then we have here the Magi receiving the divine instruction, and then later on down, Joseph receives another divine instruction. In Acts 10:22, it says, and they said, Cornelius, a centurion, a just man and one fearing God, and borne witness by the entire nation of the Jews, received a divine message by a holy angel to fetch you, Peter, to his house and to hear words from you. The divine message. Have you received a divine message from God? You might. Have I received a divine message from God? No, I have not received a divine message from God, but if I do, I'll let you know. If you have one, let me know. So the Magi were having received the divine message by a dream to not return to Herod, back to Jerusalem, because they were down in Bethlehem, fairly close to Jerusalem. And they withdrew by another odhu, a way. Now, up here before I go into the next one, I forgot. Elisions. Here's kat. Remember, and here's a vowel following it, so the alpha is not in it. If it was a consonant, a B or a G or something, then it would be kata. So they withdrew and they withdrew by another way, an odhu. Odometer is a derivative in our book, English Derivatives, of this 3598. And of their withdrawing, there is that postpositive. Remember, it goes before the word before it, or two words before it. And of their withdrawing, these both kind of go before, or you could say withdrawing, but of them. That doesn't make any sense. So, them or their. Idhu, behold, that's always behold. Angelos, remember we had that earlier with the alpha, gamma, gamma, or a messenger. Angel of the Lord, Kyriou, of the Lord. It's not Kyrios, which would be the subject, but it's not. Here it is a possessive in the genitive, we called it. We get into the nouns a little more. We'll show you the different endings, but right now, we'll just let that suffice. And the angel, phainete, kat, and there's another apostrophe with an elision, because the vowel follows it. Kata would be without. Appeared by dream to Joseph, Iosif, saying, having arisen, legon, remember the leg, whenever you see the leg, it has something to do with speech, saying, egarthis, having arisen, paralave to pedion, ketin mitera avtu, take to yourself the child, and his mother, the mother of him. Also, you could say it that way, the child, and you could put the, mitera, and take out the his, the mother of two of him. So here you can change that if you want to, and you're translating it. K, fevge, is Aegypton, and flee into Egypt. Fugitive comes from that word, 53:43. So flee into Egypt. I was going to do a study on fleeing, because the early Christians that were being persecuted by Paul fled into different parts of the world carrying the gospel. Peter fled when he was released by the angel from prison. He fled Jerusalem and went up to Joppa. And so fleeing as a Christian is nothing wrong with that. And you flee somewhere, tell other people about Jesus. If God wants you to flee, then you flee. You don't sit there and, I'm ashamed to flee. I'm going to stay here no matter what. Well, I don't think that's necessarily biblical. Ke isti aquí eos an ipo si. And be there until whenever I should speak to you. And that would be the angel or the Lord speaking through the angel in the imperative. So be there, stay there until whenever I should speak to you, imperative. You lose that if you don't put the imperative there, which I did. I don't think there's any English Bible. All the Bibles that you have, none of them deal with the imperative like you do, or I've done it in the Apostolic Bible by putting the exclamation point as close as I can to the imperative. The imperative here is flee, and then be there, isti fevge. And now I could put it there, the exclamation, it could be there, and then until whenever I should speak to you, because this verb is in the subjunctive, should. But, anyway, that there is an imperative, and the whole verse is in the imperative of what you're supposed to do. And then it continues, meli gar. Now here's another postpositive. We had that last chapter. Gar is a postpositive. Post, and it's positively in front of meli. For, and Herodes following it, is about to seek, zitin to paidion, to apolese avto. Herod is about to seek the child to destroy it. So he is going to kill it. He doesn't want any rivals. And you look into the history of Herod, and he was a very cruel man, did a lot of cruel things. There's stories about him that were written by Josephus in describing this tyrant. Then in 14 it continues, but the thing. And so is 3588. Remember we showed that the last time, where that was an article in the nominative, singular, masculine. So, then, and so we don't have a word because it would be then the having arisen, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I deleted the article, as I do many places. Then having arisen, he took to himself. That means it is the one. Then, you could put then, the one having arisen, Joseph, then Joseph would be who it's talking about here with using the one, the article. Then Joseph, the one having arisen, egerthis, parelave to paidion, ketin mitera avtu niktos. He took the child, not a baby, a child, probably a couple years old, and his mitera. We have a maternal, comes from that word, by niktos, night. We have nocturnal from this word. Ke anahorisan is Aegypton, and withdrew into Egypt. He withdrew into Egypt with the child and the mother. Kein, and he was Aki eostis telavtis irodhu. So he withdrew until the decease of Herod. Now, that is an interesting thing because the decease of Herod, argued by people that want to discredit the birth of Christ. And you go to Wiki, and Wiki's good in a lot of things. If you want to know about somebody's life, and we just went through the Magi or the Zoroastrians, it gives you a lot of good information. But unfortunately, when it comes into Bible studies, Bible subjects, like Herod, then you're going to find a certain people that don't want the New Testament to be taught or to anybody to believe this. Generally, it's not unbelievers. They could care less. It certainly wouldn't be Christians because they believe. So who does this leave? This leaves the people of the book. They know a lot about the Old Testament, but they don't want the New Testament to be taught. They hate it. They're going to lie and do anything they can to discredit anything in the New Testament, find anybody that would say anything against it, that has any sort of what they call credentials, to talk against things in the New Testament. And that's exactly what you're going to find when you get into the decease of Herod, because in Wiki it teaches that Herod died before Jesus was born. And in the article in Wiki, quoting, it says, most modern biographers of Herod and some biblical scholars dismiss Matthew's story as a literary device. So see, these people that write these things, I know who they are, and I'm not going to get into any deeper than that. And then that says in Wiki, quoting, classical historian Michael Grant states, the tale is not history, but myth or folklore. So this is what Wiki is teaching. People can go in there and write anything they want in Wikipedia. You can argue it in it's sort of place that you can say something about a subject and somebody else can say something against it, and you can argue it before they actually print it. But I quit supporting Wikipedia because of the misuse of it with the Bible. And so I just wanted to point that out. So he was there, Joshua and Mary and Jesus, until the decease of Herod. Ina plirothi to rithan ipo to kiriu thea to prophetu. That should be fulfilled, the thing having been spoken by the Lord, thea to prophetu, through the prophet. Now, the prepositions is what I mentioned I was going to bring out. And the prepositions are prepositions. I should change that. You can go into our free study guide and read about it. But let me just go through them here. We have anti, and the genitive has to do with the noun, and anti is a preposition governing one case. And here it's the genitive, number 473, and it could be abbreviated, deleted with ant, with the apostrophe. Apo, it can be deleted, this is from, it can be deleted with the apostrophe. Is, no, it can't be deleted. Ek and ex, two different endings. It depends on, ek is in the mood, imperative mood, indicative mood, and every other mood is ex. En, this is it, in. Pro, no, can't delete that. Seen, no. And then continues preposition governing two cases. So here we have ana, and then the dative, which is rare, it's up, upon, in, or with, and then with the accusative, it's up, along, or over, through, in time, among, or by a number. And it can be deleted. You could just have an with the little apostrophe above it. The genitive and accusative, yes, this can be deleted with the appositive. It would just be the. Kata can be deleted, just kat, in genitive and accusative. Parex, which don't use it very much, it's a compound of para and ex, genitive and accusative. Iper, no, I don't. That's not deleted. Genitive and accusative. Then there are prepositions following the three cases: the genitive, dative, and accusative. Epi, that can be deleted without the I. It's just ep. Meta can be deleted without the alpha. Genitive, dative, accusative. Para can be deleted without the alpha. This par whenever there is a vowel after them. This one here, peri can be, I think that's deleted, peri also. Pros, no, that's always pros. Pro, well, I'm not sure on that one. Now, epo can be deleted with just ep. So all of these prepositions. Now, prepositions like these here, you'll see the beginning of various adjectives, and it will have apo something. A word in Greek would be apo something, and it's actually the preposition influences the meaning of the word, but that's way beyond the scope of what we're going through here. So I just wanted to go through the prepositions. This is your first time through them, and you can go into the study guide, study it more in detail. So the thing that should be having been fulfilled by the Lord through the prophet, and we have that in Hosea 1. It says, from out of Egypt I called my son. Hosea 11:1, it says, for Israel is an infant, and I loved him, and from out of Egypt I called back his children. I think that's about the closest I could find to would be what is mentioned there in the 2nd chapter, verse 15. Next video, Herod kills the male babies.